Before the sermon today, I would like to make an acknowledgement, and we studied a little bit about the Bible study today, the fact that indeed we are, as Christians, have the responsibility to obey our rulers and our governors and our leaders. However, that is not absolute, because we do have a commandment from God that we'd rather obey God than men, as Peter says in Acts chapter 5. But certainly there's been a lot of chaos and a lot of unrest about what has happened. And as I mentioned, as we are supposed to be good citizens, especially in times of crisis, we cannot allow our governors to exercise threat and to threat our right, our religious rights. So it is vital for us to recognize that sweeping governmental restrictions that are in place are extraordinary for the religious community. And as much as Christians, we try very hard to acknowledge what is going on in the world right now with COVID. We have to pause and really realize what is happening and use our own minds and not let others tell us what to think and what to make of this pandemic that is happening. So no other events, I would say. I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was saying, what is going on? I live over 7 years. This has never happened before. Never happened before. And I know some of you are much older than that. Hazel, you are in your 90s, and I was talking to you, you've never seen something like this happen either. So certainly no other event in our lifetime, perhaps no other event since the founding of this nation, has caused quite this kind of widespread disruption to religious gatherings and worship. I think we can all agree to that. So government certainly has power, but government does not have unlimited power. When it comes to the Constitution does not have a pandemic clause to say that you have religious freedom, but if there's a pandemic, then you cannot gather. So it is very important that we take with a grain of salt what is happening in the world right now and put it in the context and really use our mind to really evaluate what is going on. And for the next couple of slides, actually, I have some graphs because they are available. So you be the judge. So this is the U.S. population, okay? It's 327 million, a little over. Cases of COVID so far since this pandemic started, 3.7 million cases. That's 1.13%. And you know how many died? 140,119 as of last night. That is a lot of deaths. However, that is 0.04%. 0.04%. Well, what about if we change it to California? California population 39.51 million, cases of COVID 381, COVID deaths a little over 7,000, almost 8,000, 0.019%. Okay, it's a pandemic. We realize it's a pandemic. Coachella Valley, very similar. I went last night on the website for Eisenhower Medical Center, and about 500,000 population of Coachella Valley, depending what month you are evaluating. 890 cases, 111 people died as of last night. That is 0.022%. So are we in the middle of pandemic? Yes, a lot of people over the world are getting sick, but brothers and sisters, this is not the bubonic plague. About the year 1350, 1400, there was a thing called a pandemic, the bubonic plague. It was caused by a bacteria, a gram-negative bug, that led to the death of up to 200 million people worldwide. At the time, the world population was 390 million. It killed more than half the population of the earth. So, okay, I'm not minimizing. Those deaths are real. I'm not saying that those are fake. But it puts things a little bit into perspective, especially considering that, some nations on this planet, they have taken different approaches that we have, and their outcome has not been much different. And I have one example. If you studied a little bit about what's been happening in Sweden. So in Sweden, they have not shut down schools. They have not shut down daycare facilities. They have no regulation to force citizens to remain in their homes. They have ordered no closure for any business, for any churches, none of that. And they have a smaller population, cases of COVID 0.75, COVID deaths 0.05%, a little bit higher than the Coachella Valley at 0.22. But let's be serious. They have done nothing compared to what we've been doing, and look where they are. Look what they are. So, unfortunately, because as I mentioned, those deaths are definitely serious when you look at California, when you look at the United States. But the sad thing is that, as you know, the data is available online. Nowadays, if a person goes on the freeway, like it happened over the weekend, last weekend, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday last week, somebody was riding their motorcycle in Orange County, Florida, and they got killed because he got in a motorcycle accident. And when he goes to the hospital, they test him for COVID, right? Right as he was dying, right as he was trying. And guess what? He turned out that he was positive. And all of a sudden, that death amounted to a COVID death. And it's sad. It is very sad what is happening. Inflating the numbers so that it becomes this tool, this weapon, as far as I'm concerned, of controlling the masses. I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories, but it's devastating what is happening around the world. I read the news this morning, actually, from Romania, that a person went to the doctor because they had a kidney problem. And then they took a test to do COVID because they could not do anything. She needed surgery. And then they did the test, and they were supposed to wait for the result, no surgery. Well, the woman died while waiting to see if COVID was positive. It is devastating, and it's sad, and it should not happen that way. You can disagree with me. This is just my theory, and I'll say it up loud. I believe that the reason why this pandemic is happening right now, I'm not denying that there is a pandemic. There is a pandemic the same way that there is a flu pandemic every year. I'm not going to compare the two or the death, although the deaths are comparable. But I will say that it's no coincidence that we are in an election year. And I believe, it is my opinion, I could be wrong, I believe that this is strictly for the reason of weakening the economy so the President Trump will not get reelected. This is no doubt in my mind. Because you know what wins a presidency, the second term? It's the economy, stupid. And if you can get the economy down, destroy businesses, shut down churches, yes, the economy will be poor. And then maybe Trump will not get elected. So it's very sad of the price that we pay. So with that, we understand that there's a danger in limiting religious organizations' rights to gather. If the faithful are not gathering, sooner or later they will begin to scatter. And that is why we're making such a bold statement on this, because it's not inconsequential that churches are not gathering. Because gathering lies at the very heart of religion, the right to gather lies at the very heart of religious freedoms. And that cannot be taken for granted. And it just boggles my mind. I was talking with Hazel this last couple of days ago, because Hazel called me and says, Yoda, what are we going to do? Are we going to meet? And Hazel's like, well, casinos are open. Groceries are open. Everybody's going to work. Right? And then churches are not supposed to open. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But I'm very thankful for those of you that are here, and those of you that are not here. Some of you may be listening over the Wi-Fi in your home. I suspend judgment on this. I'm not looking at you and telling you that you're somehow crazy for staying away. But there's something to it. And as far as I'm concerned, This COVID pandemic is going to end exactly on November 2nd, later this year, when the presidential election is supposed to set foot. But for the sake of the church, I appreciate, first of all of you that are here, and I appreciate even all of you staying distant to whatever extent that's possible. And I think we are really not very many people. For the sake of those in the audience, we probably, 20 people here? Or 17, thank you. But the biggest danger of churches not congregating, it's actually this sign that I saw this week that stayed with me, and it haunted me all week, because it says, you know, the danger of missing church is soon you won't miss it. Soon you won't miss it. And you know what? It doesn't matter the reason. I don't know to what extent the devil has his hand in this, but I'll tell you, I foresee that churches are going to have trouble getting the members together, the members they had pre-COVID, because people are not going to attend. I imagine all the churches, including our own awesome church, we have now streaming. And I imagine they're going to say, well, I'm staying home and I'm streaming from home and I'm participating and I am doing all that. I don't know. To me, it's not the same, because I wish I could give a hug to someone that is, but I can't. It's not that closeness, but I will not judge and say that you somehow are in sin, because I could be wrong. This pandemic could be serious, but that is just my theory. Bottom line is that for us, we should not take our liberties for granted and to allow a governor to take that away from us. And I rather be like Peter here in Acts chapter 5, when he says, I rather obey God than men. And you know, because he obeyed God rather than men, you know what happened to him? He was killed in the process, crucified upside down. So yeah, if Peter was willing to do what he did and be okay to preach Christ and to do what God wanted him to do, regardless of the consequences, well, let them do that and come and take us. They will not crucify us. Maybe because if you're protesting, apparently, that's okay. So maybe what we're doing right now, we're protesting, okay? So yeah, counting like that, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. So obviously, we are dealing with something that is frightening still. And the lesson today, as my time is burning, I would like to talk about a topic that we talked before about. I will bring into our remembrance probably the best story of the Bible in the Old Testament, when Goliath and David had that engagement. But that is the name of the sermon today, Facing Your Giants. And we're going to talk a little bit about fears, because nowadays with COVID, a lot of people are a little bit terrified. My brother called me 2 days ago and he was terrified. He says, I have not taken my kids out of house for the past 4 months, ever since it started. And they are paralyzed with fear. They are buying this Kool-Aid. And I told my brother it's going to end November 2nd. It's all right. And do take your sons out if you want to take them into a park. It's okay. He was shocked when I told him that I take my kids everywhere and there's no limits as far as I'm concerned. And my kids are fine. They tell you that, you know, kids pass the disease to older people. Well, that ended up to be a fake news, because studies have been done and kids actually do not transmit COVID too. So they tell you all kinds of things and they change stories back and forth just to create this sense of fear. And yes, a lot of people are really, really afraid. So going into my lesson today, we will be talking about fears and phobias, and apparently there's like over 300 unique phobias identified. And phobia comes from the Greek word which refers to a panic that is completely out of proportion to the perceived threat behind it. So do we have a phobia right now? A panic right now? Disproportionate? Yes, because guess what? If you get COVID, the chances you're going to die are like 0.022% if you're in Coachella Valley. I'll take my chances. I think actually 0.5% to be just more But keep in mind, that happens with elderly. That happens with people that, are very old and they have lung disease. And if it was a different year, they would have died of other diseases and would not have been such a drama. Okay, so yes, that is definitely a phobia. So extreme cases of phobia can result in escalated anxiety and a full-fledged panic attack. Can you say that we have a escalated anxiety in this country? It's just mind-boggling. I mean, everywhere you go, everybody's panicking, closing their business, shutting down. It's like incredible. People's livelihoods are gone over what is happening. And everybody is just taking it in. It's like, okay, go on with it. Just believe it. So there's certainly many phobias, many scares out there. The one that I have put a couple here, actually number 9 in the top 10 is actually brontophobia, and this is the terror of thunderstorms. Some people are terrified of 10 thunderstorms. My dogs will go into this category. Thankfully, there's not too many thunderstorms here. Yeah, they have problems with their ear. Another one is claustrophobia, the fear of being trapped in small confined spaces. This is definitely me. I get very nervous. You too, yes. And a few others. My wife, for instance, is scared of spiders. When we moved into Coachella Valley here 10 years ago, our home was a foreclosure, and it was infestated with spiders, with not just any spiders, but those guys right there, the black widow spiders. And my wife was panicking. Every night was going out. My kids remember. Actually, they were too small probably, but with a flashlight and with a slipper, and just kill, and they keep on coming back. Like about 6 months later, we eradicated them. But she had a real fear. Like, honey, it's okay. It won't kill you. I'm looking at my son. It looks big because he's got a phobia to cockroaches. I mean, he's 14 years old, but if he sees a cockroach, he runs the opposite direction. Ava's like, come on, get it out of here, and just picks it up and throws it. It just has this phobia. Kind of reminds me of COVID. Many people's like this paranoia about it's going to kill us. It's going to be the end of mankind. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. There's also other phobias, like one not so commonly known. It's ecclesiophobia. From ecclesia, that is the fear of going to church. It is a thing. It is a thing. Another phobia, the last one that I'm going to mention is homilophobia. This is from the Greek word homilo, meaning sermon, so it's the fear of sermons. Say, what is that? Yeah? So people tend to fear sermons because they do not like to be preached to. Right? It's a thing. Yes, so somebody said that preaching will cause people to either hate their sin or hate their preacher. Yeah, so choose. When I preach, if you hate me, I feel bad, but I'm not going to stop preaching the truth. So again, as I mentioned, the story today, we're going to talk in 1 Samuel chapter 17. We have there the event when the armies of Israel were very afraid because the Philistines were engaged for war, and the Israelites were facing a real big giant problem, I guess you can say it. And David's giant problem teach us how to face our own giant problem. And I'm going to make a little bit of parallel, because right now in this country, in this world, we do have a giant problem, more giant to others, but it is a big problem. If you don't think it's a big problem, look at the unemployment numbers. Look at the business that have shut down. Look at the economy, how much has plunged. It is a big problem. But God has given us everything we need to face our big, giant problems. He has. So today, actually, in the time that I have left, we're going to look at 5 strategies how to meet your giant, big problem. And the first one is that you need to define your fear. The Philistine champion named Goliath was more than 9 foot tall, like 9'9". Yeah, that could intimidate a normal human being. So Goliath lays out a challenge, and in 1 Samuel chapter 17, going from 8 to 11, he says, choose a man for yourself. This is Goliath speaking. And let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill him, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man, that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Think we have a fear in this nation right now? They were terrified. They were terrified. So the problem was that no one wanted to face their fear. No one wanted to go and jump in this fight to fight this big guy Goliath. And the giant wasn't going away. Verse 16 actually tells us that Goliath came back for 40 days, every morning and every night. That means 80 times would come before the Israelites and just taunt them, intimidate them. You can imagine, it's kind of like this pandemic. It's not going away. Every day, it's just more deaths, more cases, more testing, more bombarding. But this was intense because it was for 40 days, twice a day. It was terrifying. So my question to you right now is, what Goliath are you facing? Do you have Goliath in your life right now? Maybe it's death, disease, COVID-19 could be your Goliath. Danger of any sort. If we are honest with ourselves, we do have fears that we battle. So don't be surprised if from your human eye they seem as invincible, that you cannot defeat it. And you know, this is kind of what's happening right now with COVID. It seems like there's no end in sight. Where do we stop? It's devastating to many people. And that is what a phobia, what a scare could look like. So that is first thing we need to do. Define your fear. Make sure you know what it is. So whatever you're afraid of, make sure you identify it and you know what it is. The second step in tackling your giant is that you need to change your perspective. Saul sees Goliath and says, he's so big, we can never kill him. And then, of course, David sees Goliath and says, he's so big, I cannot miss him. You see, different changing perspectives? Right. So, what we focus on affects us. In 1 Samuel 17:24, it says that when the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from him in great fear. They saw the man and they ran. And of course, looking at Goliath, the reaction of Saul and his men is, have you seen this man who has come up? And you gotta love David's response. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Who does he think he is? So one says, look at him. And the other says, who is he? Big difference in perspectives. And brothers and sisters, whatever danger comes your way, if you're going to look at a thing just the way it comes to you, maybe big and nasty and hairy looking and dangerous, but if you look in the right perspective and you put God in the center of your reasoning, nothing becomes impossible and hard to defeat. So David sees things from a spiritual perspective. Who is he in the sight of God? Right? Saul sees it as a fight of our size versus his size, our muscle versus his muscle. Look at him. He's been training for so long. He's such a mighty warrior. Who can fight him? Saul doesn't pause to say, wait a minute, our God is greater than that. Do we pause in all of this chaos that is happening to say, you know what? Yes, there's anxiety, but Lord, I roll my cares on you. In 1 Timothy 5:7 says, cast your cares upon him. Don't carry them. Put it on him. He cares for you. And then, no cares. No weights. That feels good. That feels good. I like to do that when I go hiking with my kids. A couple of years ago, I went with my daughters on top of Mount San Jacinto. And my kids, Elena did better, but Eva was crying and just terrible. Daddy, just go back. We're just not going to tell anybody. We're just going to tell them we actually went to the top. I said, honey, no, it's okay. It's all right. We're going to go to the top, honey. It's okay. But Daddy, it's okay. And she was so sad. And then I took her luggage and I let her backpack, put her on me. It was easier for her. It was harder for me, but for her it was easy. And that's what God does to us. He's inviting us that we cast our cares upon Him. So yes, Saul sees it a fight, him versus me. Our muscle against his muscles, his weapon versus my weapon, our experience against his experience. But David sees it as a fight between God and evil, between the holy and the righteous, and the unrighteous, and between the glory of God and the pride of a man. So that is how we, brothers and sisters, are supposed to see our battles. The battles are not ours. There's a song in the new psalm book that we don't have it in our psalm books. It's called "The Battle Belongs to the Lord." The battle belongs to the Lord. There's a passage in Isaiah, I believe it's chapter 53, that says that He will make any weapon forged against you not work against you. When you turn the battle to the Lord, any battle, any weapon that will come to you, it will be of no use against you. Think about that. That is what happens when you shift your perspective and put it on God. So, are you facing a giant problem or an impossible situation? And if you do so, what you should do is stop, refocus. Don't stare at the problem with your mortal lenses. See the situation from God's vantage point and adopt a spiritual perspective. Right? That good old, what would Jesus do? What can I do? Knowing that I'm not alone, God is with me. What would God want me to do? This is not my battle. I cannot fight this battle. Hey, can you cure a pandemic, COVID-19? You can. God can. God can if He wants. He can stop it whenever He wants to stop it. And I don't know, maybe it's something that He had in His cards. I don't know. But the thing is, am I going to allow that to freeze me and to just pause me and stop me in my tracks and not worship God because of it? Because of some knucklehead governor says that we can't? Godless person? I don't think so. I do not think so. So, 5 strategies. Define our fear, change your perspective, shift your your mind to God. And the third step is that we have to overcome pressure from others. David wants to take Goliath out, but the first he has to do is get past his brothers. You know? So he was being very positive. I'm going to take this man. And what does his brother do? I'm going to get there. So anytime you take on any epic battle, you'll have to put up with the naysayers. Right? People that are supposed to be on your side. Oh, you cannot do that, honey. Oh, you should not even try, honey. That's just, you cannot do that. People do tell that to you before? Yeah. 1 Samuel 17:28, this is the brother, Eliab. He was supposed to be a warrior, okay? He was not just any, he's the oldest brother. And he says, now Eliab, his older brother, heard when he spoke to the man, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, why did you come here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down here to see the battle. This is his brother. Oh, thank you for the encouragement. I appreciate it. I was just going to come here to kill the dragon because all of you are a bunch of chickens. Do you mind? So Eliab reminds David that he's a lousy shepherd. Go back to your sheep. And you know, that's the same thing will happen to you when you face a big giant and then you think you can take it, and those closest to you, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh, you cannot do that. The closest to you. So one of those problems you will face when you start to overcome your giant is that you will be criticized, and many times you'll be by those closest to you. Be prepared for this. Some actually suggest that the battle that David had to do with his brothers and then King Saul was more trying than the actual fight with Goliath. You know, you can take Goliath, but you have emotional connections with those around you, and it just weakens you. It just bothers you. But think about it. He was about to go to fight Goliath, and instead of being encouraged, or at least neutral, he got beat down. And expect for you to be beat down whenever you are fighting a giant. So how did David handle it? Verse 30 says he just turned away. He wasn't even going to take the energy to be sidetracked, to drain his strength. I have this quote that I really love. It says, when somebody tells you it can be done, it's more a reflection of their own limitations, not yours. Isn't that cool? One more time. When someone tells you you can be done, it's just a reflection on their limitations, not yours. That is so true. They tell you, oh, you cannot do that because I can never do it. Well, just because you cannot do it doesn't mean I can't do it. During the Bible study today, Rhett mentioned the event about Henry Ford when he invented the horseless carriage. Everybody mocked him, scorned him. You are an idiot. What? Are you crazy? But he had the vision to see, right? Many years down. And look at us now. Everybody laughed at him. The same thing with Thomas Edison. He had this contraption called, right, the incandescent light bulb. Everybody laughed at him, and he tried about 1,000 times. Nothing was working. And then by a stroke of genius, voila, everybody's using light. So do not tell others, tell you what is possible and what is not possible, no matter what giant you are facing. So number four is that part of the strategies of what you do when you meet your giant is plug into the source of power. 1 Samuel 17:37 says, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, okay, then go ahead, the Lord be with you. Coward king, can you imagine? So David did not say that he delivered his flocks from the lion and the bear, but he says, the Lord deliver me. His power was in the Lord. The Lord was the source of his power. Like the electronic appliances you have in the house, they are useless until you plug them in. I mean, what's going to happen if I unplug this thing from here? This fancy screen, my computer, all will die. And the same thing with us. As Christians, unless we are plugged in the Lord, in his power, we have no power. We have no power. So, God's people in the Bible, in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, us included, we are powered through the Holy Spirit. We have the Holy Spirit which flows through us. And that is what gives us power. It's not my muscles, like you are strong. Good luck with that. It's the Lord. It's the Lord who gives you strength. That's where real strength comes from. Finally, number 5, fifth strategy and last point for today is that when you have a giant or some big challenge, you are supposed to bring the fight where you have the advantage. David picked up what was familiar with him, 5 smooth stones and a slingshot. And by the way, some ask, why 5? I've heard some people say, well, he must not have a good faith in God. He must have doubted that maybe he threw the rock and missed the guy. And yeah, that's a theory. I don't like it. There's another theory, actually. In 2 Samuel chapter 21, it seems that Mr. Goliath, he had 4 more brothers. Did you know that? So guess what? There are theologians out there that believe that the reason he took 5 stones is because he was thinking, what about his 4 brothers would come along after me? Of course, they didn't. But you can read in 2 Samuel 21, it's not a very clear passage, but especially in verse 22, it talks about 4 similar gigantic brothers that he had. So yeah, obviously those gigantic brothers, they were skedaddle. They left because they were afraid. Obviously, they probably thought if this guy killed the biggest and the meanest, they got afraid too. So yeah, do not pay too much attention on why he used 5. It was a strategy. It was a strategy. He was prepared. And when it comes to taking the battle when you're comfortable, I read an illustration about the eagle, actually, who does not fight the snake on the ground. Did you know that? There's many types of eagles. And if you one day want to wonder about how marvelous God is, study about eagles. All kids, watch some YouTube videos on eagles. Because eagles is an incredible creature that God has created. Incredible. One of the things that that mentioned, because I studied about eagles a little bit this week, he says that an eagle, did you know, they can actually trace with one eye two objects. So you can have one eye and a bunny over there and a snake over here, and the eagle can see both, zooming in on both with one eye. One eye over here, it can follow 4 prey at the same time. And of course, he's got that zoom in, that he can zoom in and see from thousands of feet in the air. He can see what's happening to see a little bunny. But the crazy thing about this eagle, because I'm not going to go too far into this, but the point I'm trying to make is that the eagle does not fight him on the ground. He picks up the snake and it takes him into the air, and then he drops him out of the air. And of course, the snake gets all disoriented because he's got no strength in the air. And then he chops his head in the air while he's gleaning, just like that, doesn't have to do much. And just put his claws into his neck, into his throat, rips him off. He starts eating them even in the air. And then of course, the snake is vulnerable in the sky, unless on the ground, maybe the snake could turn around the bird. But not in the air, because in the air, he's got no strength, disoriented. Can you imagine being dropped from 1,000 feet? Oh, sure, let me bite you. I don't think so. So, the same way we are to take our flight in the spiritual realm, and God will fight your battles. Don't fight the enemy in his comfort zone. Change the battleground, and like the eagle, let God take charge. Take it to his realm. Take it into the place where God is battling. Don't take the fight to the devil. Don't engage yourself thinking, boy, you're so strong, I'm going to just fight the devil by myself. Because I can. You cannot. You're going to lose every time. Unless you invoke the name of Jesus, unless you go through prayer, unless you call upon God to help you, you will lose every time. Because you don't have power against the devil, except through Jesus Christ. So, this brings us to conclusion. And in conclusion, we will remember that God will help us stand and face our giants just like he helped David. When we define our fear, we know what we're fighting against, and then we change our perspective to put ourselves from God's perspective, see things from God's perspective, from his vantage point, then see that you overcome the pressure from others. This is probably one of the toughest, especially those that are close to you. Number 4, plug into the source of power. Know that you don't have the power. The power comes from God. And finally, take the fight where you have the advantage in the spiritual realm. It's not about you. It is the Lord. It's about the Lord. So that was my lesson for today.